and thank you, everybody. Lovely to see you today. Yes, this is our disclaimer. If you need legal advice, talk to us. You have lots of ways to reach out to us and schedule a consultation, and whatever you put in the chat window is not confidential. So please be mindful of that. But thank you so much for coming today. Hi, everybody. I'm Sophie Alcorn. I'm the founder of Alcorn Immigration Law and TechCrunch's Ask Sophie columnist and author of the new book that we're excited to share more about today, which became a bestseller in 3 days on Amazon in the immigration books category and the practical guides for law category. So really excited that I got to write and publish my first book. We're going to be sharing more about it today. But other ways to connect with me are the Sophie Alcorn podcast. You can read my TechCrunch articles on TechCrunch Plus, which is paywalled, and a week later we repost everything for free on alcorn.law. So all of those articles are available to you. About me, I like to meditate. I'm a mom. I live in Palo Alto. I love working with startup founders and just brilliant people from all over the world trying to make the world a better place. And I believe that we should have a world where any baby that's born gets to live a life of self-actualization at their highest potential. And that will make the world a better place when everybody can do their one thing really well. And so what we can do here is try to remove the political lines on the maps that can keep people from fulfilling their destiny and their full potential. So that's why I'm so excited to share our firm's knowledge and expertise with you today here and more about the book. And from there, I will ask my colleague, Linda, please tell us about yourself.
Hi, Sophie. I'm excited to be here today. My name is Linda Haggerty. I'm the Chief Legal Officer here at Alcorn. I've been practicing business immigration law for over 20 years, and it's been an interesting journey. And I'm really excited to be here today. And I'm a big fan. I work for you, but I also really admire you. And I've read the book and it's really impressive. And I'm so excited that we're launching this webinar today to kind of share what's in the book and how helpful it is for founders. I have two teenage daughters.
Yeah.
So, that's my snapshot.
Amazing. Thank you, Linda. It's great to be here with you today. And Corey.
Yeah, so my name's Corey Fruki. I am an associate attorney at Alcorn. I've been practicing immigration law now for 7 years almost. Prior to joining Alcorn, I did some humanitarian immigration. And Sophie, your mission that you had on that first slide, that really resonates with me as being a new mom to two little kids. Right? So totally feel that, support it, love it.
None of us ever want to tell our kids, oh, honey, it's great that you're an astrophysicist with a postdoctoral research, but really just go find an American to marry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I'm very excited to be here with you today, and I already see people's questions in the Q&A panel. So please feel free to add those now. We're going to try to get through as many of those as possible today. We have a lot of slides we can share, but mostly we want to be here for you. And this is our team. We have an amazing team of people who are really, really passionate about helping our clients, who believe in the American dream and helping people access it, helping people have, options for self-determination and creative freedom, and generating new ideas and new companies and new technologies and new research. So we're so excited to help our clients with that. The firm's been around for 8 years now. We just had our 8-year anniversary since I started it in my kitchen when my kids were 1 and 4 in Mountain View, and I was just washing dishes and thinking, oh, Silicon Valley is so close but so far away. How will I ever get there? But here we are, and I'm just so thrilled, Linda and Corey, with the amazing team we've been able to surround ourselves with. I mean, I've technically been a lawyer since 2008, and now I'm so honored that practitioners, attorneys, paralegals with decades of experience are choosing to join us to help our clients. So it's really exciting to bring this expertise together. All right. Okay. So we have a poll for our audience. We want to know, which journey are you on? So there are several questions here, and we're just curious to know, which you identify with, because our firm and our mission and our presence in Silicon Valley, we do business immigration for growing companies. We do startup founder and individual self-petitioned immigration. So we attract many entrepreneurs, many students, many HR folks helping growing teams. And this information helps us just know more about who you are, so we can really dedicate this webinar according to the best way to help you. So I see, of the people who've responded so far, we have several aspiring entrepreneurs. We have a few people who already have businesses and who want to expand internationally from another country to the United States. We do have some interest in sponsoring team members at companies. Several folks want to get green cards, and others want to hire internationally. So this is really great. Thank you so much for sharing this about you. And I also see that more questions are coming in the Q&A panel. So that's great. Thanks for adding them now, and that'll help us allocate our time to be able to answer all of them. So whatever you put, thank you so much for completing the poll. I will share the results. So you can see we have, of the people who chose to respond, we have several entrepreneurs, several people hiring, and several people seeking green cards. So we'll be talking about all of those, and all of those are in the book. And yes, Alex, would you be able to put the Amazon link in the chat window, please, for everybody, in case they're interested in getting a copy? All righty, so that was our poll. Thank you for completing that. So the US is and remains to be, at its very core, a nation of immigrants. These are some of the graphics we were able to pull for the book. And I thought this was really interesting. On the left, the top cross-country migration corridors, because obviously immigration is a global phenomenon and the US isn't the only destination, but it is the largest destination. And you can see here how each country's expat population tends to choose different destination countries. So the US is well ahead of the UK, Germany, France, Switzerland. But, we hear all the time about, Canada taking America's H-1B holders, or international students, now going to other countries, or other countries that fund startups and give you a visa and you can just go there and build. So, we do American US inbound immigration, but there's a whole world out there, and you should go where you have the most potential and where your dreams lead you. And you can also see on the right how the amount of immigrants in the US have grown. We're up to 45 million, and that represents about 15% or so of the US population. So that is very inspiring. And it's actually quite a small part of the population. And here's the other statistic, Linda and Corey, that I was looking up yesterday, because I was thinking about how immigrants are really like an undertapped market for venture capitalists who want to invest in startups. Guess what share of the Earth's population is in the United States? I know, right? It's like,
yeah.
right? So there's like, I don't know, 7 or 8 billion people in the world at this point, but apparently the US population is 5% of the world. So that means that 95% of the humans on Earth are not in the United States, which means that like 95% of the brilliant startup founders with the capacity to solve climate change and help protect the Amazon rainforest and cure cancer, right, are not in the US. So we're all about expanding access. Okay. So one of the main purposes that helped guide me in writing the book was this whole concept of starting with the end in mind. And one of the questions, if you ever get on a potential new client call with me, that I like to ask when I'm talking to people is this magic wand question. And I read about it from positive psychology or something, but it's essentially, if I had a magic wand and you could do whatever you wanted, what would you do? And it also ties into like Jack Canfield and success principles and chicken soup for the soul of like, if you could do anything or have anything, what would it be? Let's start with the end in mind. And now how do we reverse engineer and get there from here? And so that's been instrumental. And that's really one of the things that guided me in writing the book. And Linda and Corey, when you're talking to potential new clients, how do you find yourselves guiding them on, because a lot of people call us, right? And they're like, hey, I need an H-1B. And then do you trust it? It's like saying, hey, doctor, I need knee surgery, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of dialogue. We first want to understand what they need, and then we have to dig deeper and look at their profile. And then we can help decide what the best fit is immigration wise. Because sometimes what you need isn't what the best fit is for you. So that's sort of a process.
And it might not be what you think you need. And there might be a better thing that you could get as well.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Like collecting all that information, and then I do like Sophie, your magic wand question. I tend to say, what's your goal? And then I think other questions are, travel plans, work plans, and then like Linda's mentioning, maybe what you think you need isn't actually what you need. So figuring that out.
And what do you think some of our clients' most common goals tend to be, whether they're representing growing companies or looking for individual immigration options?
I mean, most of the clients that I speak with are really looking for a green card, to work here permanently, have that freedom to work for any employer. So that's often the ultimate goal, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes there might be tax reasons why they don't want that green card. So it's really good to find that out in the beginning of your conversation.
Yeah, I would say mostly green card, but second up is definitely just looking to work in the US as soon as possible, but they're not sure yet about the green card. So
yeah, it's like live here, work here with freedom in any role for as long or as little as you want, and have multiple job opportunities and travel in and out freely. I think those are the real biggies. And then I think a subset of people want to definitely become citizens and help bring their parents to the States one day.
yes. Yeah.
And then like,
I agree.
this is less today, but for a while, there were a lot of these like aspiring digital nomads that wanted a US passport to simply be able to be gone as long as they wanted and like out in the jungles of Costa Rica or something, or Bali. I don't know. It sounded great. So lots of reasons, but yeah, in general, it's really hard for us to help you if you are unwilling to speak your goal. And I think this is where okay, so in another life, I would totally be a yoga teacher if I weren't a lawyer. So there's definitely aspects of my personality. So I kind of tried to write this book with that flavor and tone because I wanted it to be compassionate and helpful and friendly and not have jargon. And so one of the things as you read it is, and there's a hummingbird outside of my window. And one of my intro is about this hummingbird that got stuck in this house and was hitting the window trying to get out, and how I realized it was a local maxima and it wasn't their true potential. And when they finally got to go outside and rush into the sunlight, they were gone instantly. But for a while, they're banging their head against the wall thinking the window was the outside world. I think we all do that a lot. And one of the things that can be so scary, especially if you have these like big, hairy, audacious goals in your life, like cure cancer with biomarkers, or, create flying suits like Tony Stark and Iron Man, or, do drug discovery in microgravity and satellites in orbit, right? Or put fiber optic cable on the moon. I mean, we have some really amazing projects that our clients are working on. And then we're like, what the heck is blockchain? How do we describe this? Chat GPT, tell me what blockchain is so I can communicate this to USCIS. But we need to know what our clients want, or else we can't really help them. And so you have to admit what you want to yourself. And it can be so scary to admit it, because what if you fail? And if you don't admit it to yourself, then you can't fail. So it's a type of protecting yourself. But on the other hand, it's really hard to get it if you're not willing to say what it is. So we encourage all of our clients to get clear with themselves about their goals, because then we can actually help optimize your journey there, and it might be different. And same with HR for companies. If you needed this founding engineer yesterday and they're in another country, and now there's like a crisis there, and they needed to be here, and you were waiting for the H-1B lottery, but now their safety is in jeopardy, right? Like, we need to know that, because we want to help you have happy employees that have peace of mind. And I'll share one anecdote before we move on and get into the nitty gritty. But I had one of my like bucket list types of calls last week with a potential new client. And he said, Sophie, I asked my VC to introduce us to you. I'm an immigrant. I've gone through the whole journey. We just raised $20 million. We have traction and we have product market fit. And I have 20 employees. And I swore to myself that one day when I got in a financial position to treat my employees well, that I would get them the best immigration services possible, because I know how important that peace of mind is. And as an employer, I want to retain my team by giving them the best. And that's why I'm so excited I got to have a call with you today, Sophie. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Wow. Changing the narrative. So it's really an amazing tool to help people. So, okay, so let's actually talk about some of the stuff we do and some of the stuff in the book. So the book is actually a choose your own adventure, because when I was 7 years old, I really liked reading choose your own adventure paperback books. And he was like, oh no, fell in the volcano, died, go back to page 34, try again. Oh, the alligator got me this time. Like, how am I going to navigate out of this? So, it's literally a journey. And, here's a sample of some of the offerings for startup founders. Like, do you want to start a business? Okay, great. Where are you? Are you in the US or are you outside of the US? Okay, no, you don't, because you already have a business. So you don't need to start a business. So how do you expand to the US? So that's in the book. That's chapter 4. Do you want to was that all just to come here temporarily? But what if you want to stay here permanently? Okay, great. Like, let's explore all options. You might have a company, but what if you're married to an American? What if you need asylum? We cover that in the book. What our practice is around is employment-based immigration, but I thought it was important to cover some of the basics of other types of immigration, just to let people know what options are out there. So the book really covers a comprehensive guide for startup founders and early stage employees at startups, and also people tasked with the immigration function at a startup. So HR, people ops, COO, CEO, whoever has to make those hiring and recruiting and retention decisions, just giving you an overview of what are these immigration tools, how do I use them? And that's what we're going to be talking a little bit more about today as well. And, here's another chart. I think this is also really important. Maybe Linda, you could tell us a few minutes just about because some people might be very new to immigration, but I think the backlogs for India and China are super important. Could you just tell us a little bit about what the Visa Bulletin is and how that works and where that comes from?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's immigration so layered, right? So it's like we peel back the layers sometimes when we're talking about different immigration pathways. So whenever we're looking at an employment-based green card, one of the final steps of the process, involves immigrant visa availability. So this is sort of this mysterious, thing to most people. And it's frustrating for particularly people from China and India because they see the biggest backlogs or wait. Essentially, the Department of State every month comes out and they provide essentially a queue for those that are pursuing employment-based green cards to tell you what the availability is for immigrant green cards. And the queue dates that they list are all based on what we call your priority date, or the date where you got approval for a certain phase of the green card process. So in some cases, when we look at that visa bulletin, in some of the categories, the wait could be 10 years. So, it can be very challenging. So India and China, we see backlogs of, 5 to 10 years in some cases. EB1, the highest of the priorities, which is reserved for those who qualify for like a first preference, alien of extraordinary ability, which is a very high level person. And we do a lot of those cases successfully. And that's where you often see the shortest wait, but they're the hardest case to file. So it can be challenging, particularly for those foreign nationals. And we strategize that when we take a case on. We try to map out the estimated timeline, but because the visa bulletin is based on demand, sometimes we're just giving you our best estimate based on what we've seen over the past year or two.
We actually reran the numbers a few weeks ago for the TechCrunch column, and the analysis that we did, because there was this 2017 or 2018 Cato Institute report that said that if you're from India, EB2, advanced degree or national interest or something, PhD, that you would have to wait 151 years in line for your turn in line for a green card. This is not true anymore. We pulled the latest data and we redid all of the math according to the same way that report had been done. And we think if you start now based on who's already in line ahead of you, that people getting their priority date for the first time today, so not reusing an old priority date, but new priority dates for India would have to wait 4 years for an EB1A and potentially 10 to 12 years for an EB2. So EB2, okay, thank you, Trump, thank you, pandemic. It went from 150 years to maybe 10 years, so maybe that's good for people if you're still hanging around waiting. But it's definitely a source of post-traumatic stress disorder for immigrants. So if you feel that, you're not alone. It's definitely a thing. Get help. You don't have to suffer alone. But yeah, a lot of our clients are just like, I want to take this situation into my own hands. And more people are getting EB1s, which we're happy to help with. But the other side of the coin is, for startup lingo, there's been hockey stick growth in EB1 with the number of filings doubling almost every year for the last 5 years. And so with increased demand, the more it's going to slow down all the other green cards for the rest of the world. So the point is, just start as soon as you can, get a priority date as soon as you can, however get your turn in line reserved. And we'll be talking more about those types of green cards, but often we have aspiring founders who have been working at, I guess it's called Mang or Fang, whatever, like big tech companies. And they're like, okay, I've been here 15 years. I really want to create my startup, but I'm still waiting for my green card. How do I do it? So, a lot of this goes into that strategy. All right. Okay, so we're gonna peruse through some of the other content of the book and sort of chat through what these types of options are. There are a variety of alternative non-immigrant visas that people can use. The biggie is an H-1B and an O-1, and we're going to talk more about those. But maybe Corey, you could walk us through just some of these other alternative short-term working visas are that some of our clients can find beneficial.
Yeah, and I think, you're going to touch on this in the slides coming up, but I like to think too of some of these visas as buckets when you're trying to figure out what's the best visa for you, because there's non-immigrant, immigrant, and then dual intent visas. So they all have different requirements and fit different scenarios. But here's non-immigrant intent. So this is single intent visas. They're temporary. You're coming to the US to work with this visa type and then return back home once that visa has expired or that authorized stay has expired. So the first one is just, we've really, it's the B1, B2. We've just called it B. So here it's the same thing as the B1, B2. It could be for tourists or for business meetings. So that one, is for temporary. Usually, I think most B1, B2s I see are granted for 10 years, and then you can travel in and out of the US for 6 months at a time. We have an F here, F1 visa for education. There's the H1B1, which is specific to individuals from Singapore, and then a J1 visa, which is used for
And Chile.
Chile, sorry.
Yeah,
Correct.
it's okay. It's so random. Yeah.
It's really random. I mean, I'm sure some law firms see it more than others if that's their clientele, but it's out there. Then we have the J1 for training and internships. That's what we usually see it used for. And the TN, which is for individuals from Canada and Mexico, which allows for work authorization in certain occupations.
Yeah, and these are really strict categories where if they think you're coming here because you're in love or because you're trying to work or build a company, you may have your visa denied or you may be denied entry at the airport. So you really want to be careful.
Yeah.
Or TN at the border. And they're vetting you to make sure you have enough funds in your home country bank account and you're gonna leave. And it's really confusing for people. Corey and I were on a call with somebody last week that was like, well, if they get a B visa, can't they just say they're coming to work and get a job and that they're negotiating the job? And we're like, if you try to talk about working at the B visa interview, it's probably not going to work.
Yes.
It was it's such a hard concept for people because all the legal stuff doesn't make practical real life sense.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
That's why.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll say, like, take common sense, throw it out the window, and now we're going to talk about this process.
Yeah.
I always lead with immigration somehow is never convenient for your goal, but we're gonna make it work. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's talk about some of these more forgiving visas and then okay, so maybe Corey walk us through, and then Linda, you can tell us about like the technical difference between like H1B and L and dual intent, and then the others and what practical effect that has. So Corey, walk us through.
E-visas so there's several E-visas here. Maybe Linda can speak to a couple of the other ones. I know there's the Australian E3. So typically these are for individuals from Australia. And there's also E1, E2. Then we have H1B here for people who are in specialty occupations. So I think you intended, Sophie, right, this H1B category to encompass H1B cap exempt, H1B lottery. So there's different layers to H1B as well.
And maybe Alex can put the link to our H1B webinar into the chat.
Yeah.
We're going to do a full H1B season, everything webinar coming up soon.
And we have the L visa here for intra-company transferee. So someone transferring from a foreign office to a US office, and an O visa for individuals who have made great achievements in their role. What did you say? Sorry.
I'm just making a pop song that a superstar would sing about. Oh, for O visas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So these are the most common, and basically if you have a green card started, you're not going to get denied for that reason for these things. But Linda, what is like a true non-immigrant intent category versus the others? What effect does that have?
Yeah, like I like to say quasi, immigrant intent, because it's the cleanest visas that allow for immigrant intent will be the H1B and the L1. Those are visa categories where you can pursue a green card, you can travel, there's absolutely no restrictions.
And you're never stuck in the US after your I-485 is filed, even if you don't have advanced parole, right?
Right. So you can travel freely. There's quite a bit of flexibility. The H1B also goes the extra mile, and you can keep extending your H1B time. So you have a 6-year limit, but you can keep extending because you're in the green card process. So that's sort of like, if you can get that H1B, that's gold. But we all know the lottery is a big challenge. So
yeah.
It's not a sure thing.
And H-1B has its struggles for startups because they're like, well, we don't have any money and you want me to pay myself what? Like, I want to subsist on ramen in a pod in San Francisco with the other generative AI hackers of Cerebral Valley. I do not need $135,000 a year to be a software. So anyway, we can work with people on that, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, we have some startup founders and co-founders who say, let's go for the part-time H-1B. I see myself working into a full-time role. I can't pay 100,000, but I can be paid 50,000. And then we can amend my H-1B as time goes on and the company grows and there's more funding. So we can be creative with the H-1B in that way as well.
Okay. And then let's talk about green cards. And so, just to be overly clear, I didn't want to leave anything major out of the book, but we're only accepting business immigration cases at this time. So we don't do all of these, but I think they're important for people to know about. Corey, can you walk us through what some of these green card pathways are?
Yeah, there's the diversity visa lottery. So certain countries that qualify, you can enter yourself. If you're a national of that country, you can enter yourself into this lottery. And if selected, you get to apply for a green card. I don't know how many people know about this, but I say if it's an option, like it doesn't hurt to try.
Sometimes we get students wondering if they're on F1 and they put themselves in this, if it's going to be a problem. But we see a lot of people still get visitor and F1 visas after they've been in the lottery, I think.
Yeah. I think so too. But I definitely think it's something out there that is just a gamble, but it doesn't hurt trying for, you can make it work.
Oh my gosh. Yesterday I had somebody tell me that let's just pretend they were like born in Venezuela and then they moved to Canada and became a Canadian citizen, and then they got selected in the DV lottery and they did their thing themselves and they put that they were based in Canada, and they got to their interview and their whole thing got denied because they should have put their birth and they didn't know it. So they're like, good thing you're extraordinary and we could just get them an EB1, but still it's like weird, right?
Yeah,
so
that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
That's not good. Other green cards here though are employment based, which I think we're going to go a little bit deeper into in a minute. There's family based. So this is based on close relationship with your family, having a qualifying relationship there. So, citizen siblings and spouses is covered here with immediate relatives. And then there's the fiance visa. Fiance visas are they're like, I don't know, to me, they're gray areas because you're not like when you get the visa, you're not necessarily a green card holder yet, but you can get married and then apply for a green card. But that's also an option there.
It's the reality TV show option if you want to do.
Yeah, I just find fiance visas to be so interesting, but yeah.
One day we'll have a reality show about our clients and their startups and how they navigate the integration process. That'll be intense. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more about green cards. I think we have a few more slides, and then we're going to go to some of these H-1B questions and green card questions, and we have a lot of questions in the Q&A panel, so we can dive into that. But I know a big motivation for several people on the webinar was I want to get a green card by myself. Linda, what are some of the initial considerations? Like if somebody's been in the US for a while as a student or on H-1B, how would they figure out what type of green card they might want to look at if they want to do it themselves?
I think it really goes to like their qualifications and achievements and how you can document it, because the categories that are on the screen here, the EB1A, Alien of Extraordinary Ability, and then the EB2 National Interest Waiver can both be self-sponsored as long as you can prove that you meet those requirements.
Yeah. So I think what I tend to tell people is, look, if you're from India, if you're not from India, first of all, the laws are racist. I'm sorry. Therefore, if you're from India or China, you have a longer wait and you have to basically be extraordinary if you want to get a green card in any sort of reasonable time frame. If you're from Europe, Africa, Australia, other places, with an EB2 and AW, you can probably get a green card in 2 to 3 years. Right now, there's a slight backlog. I believe January 2023 is the priority date for the October and November visa bulletins for the dates for filing. So That means that people who started their I-140 in January, where it got approved, they are now able to start phase 2 with their adjustment of status I-485. So they might have had to wait, like, maybe their I-140s got approved in February to May, and then so they had to wait like 5 to 6 additional months to start their adjustment of status. It's not too big of a deal. But if you don't want to wait that long, like today I was chatting with somebody who has a startup doing generative AI software that already has military contracts, and they're hitting a wall with ITAR and export control licensing regulations, where they want to be able to sell this software at a bigger scale to the US federal government agencies. And there's only certain grants they can get and certain projects they can work on because they don't have a green card. So even though they already have an EB2 NIW approved, we were having the conversation of how do I do an EB1A and concurrently file my adjustment of status, because my priority date would be current, and then how to do an expedite request based on US national interest from Department of Defense letters. So it sort of depends on your urgency. Certainly if you have some sort of academic scholarly research background, it's very straightforward to get an EB1A. We do a lot of those, but even startup founders can get EB1As for business. And we do those a lot for our clients, especially the ones from India and China, and sort of an overall guiding strategy. And if you're at the very beginning of your journey right now, a lot of F1 students and their masters are reaching out to us, and they want to be founders, and they're about to graduate, and they're doing the calculation of like, okay, I'm going to get regular OPT, and then I don't want to deal with relinquishing my equity to get the STEM extension. So I've got to get an O1 by the time my regular OPT is done. But I need a priority date as quickly as possible. And I don't have sustained extraordinary ability to get an EB1 yet. So I'm just going to file an EB2 NIW with my startup business plan right when I graduate, so I can at least lock in a priority date. And then as soon as I have my O1 and then maybe rack up a few more accomplishments, I'm going to do another I-140 later in the EB1A category. And that will help me leapfrog with my old priority date and file my adjustment of status in the future. So there's like complex strategy that we can work out.
I mean, I think the idea of like using your priority date, it's amazing. So, you start the green card process through one pathway, and you can always pivot, and you can refile and use that Q date and apply to a higher preference category and get the green card faster. So
and I would just say, like, good faith business plans for EB2 NIW are important. If for whatever reason your green card does get approved in that category one day, you would want to show that you're like willing to actually grow and run this business and try it. It doesn't have to succeed. Things happen, but I think a lot of our clients are doing amazing things, and so it's pretty easy to translate that into an EB2 NIW case for them early on. And the other thing I'll just say is a lot of people at tech companies who were like entrepreneurs or leaders within a corporate might qualify for EB1, and they might want to go from H1B to EB1, which is technically possible. But in my experience, if you have an O1 first, it's not required, but it's sort of like lets the immigration officer breathe a sigh of relief of like, oh, somebody else already decided they were extraordinary, and that was a year ago. So, they're probably still extraordinary. Cool. They did more stuff. Great.
Yeah, it's a good stepping stone. Absolutely. It's a litmus test for us. Like we hit that level, and now we know we can build on that.
Yeah. Corey, any other observations to add as we're talking about self-petitioning green cards?
No, I think you guys covered it there.
Okay, great. Well, then let's go into, what is extraordinary ability a little bit. And this is a big part of the book. But this is the O1 criteria. So this is, and it's related to the EB1 criteria. If you want an EB2 NIW, it's easier than this generally. But O1s are super helpful if you're a founder abroad and you need to move here fast, and maybe you don't have enough traction for an L1 or enough time duration for an L1, or you're not from the right country to get an E2, or you don't want to deal with the H-1B lottery or pay. Actually, we can get H-1Bs without the lottery, which has been really instrumental to a lot of our clients. But this is like half the cost. So, it's actually a bargain to get an O1 compared to other investments. So in general, for extraordinary ability for an O1, why do you want an O1? You can work here for 3 years. You can be a CEO pretty easily. There's no prevailing wage. You can have an itinerary of services that you can open startups, close startups, take consulting work, take W-2 employee work, write books and get money for it, advise your friends' startups. So there's a lot of things that people in Silicon Valley want to do that would otherwise be considered unauthorized employment. So having an O1 can help set you up for that. The other beautiful thing is it doesn't have to be held by a particular company. It can be sponsored by an agent, like a Hollywood actor. And that could be a friend in your field who's willing to do it for free. Or you can also hire a professional agent for like $1,000, and then they can be your O1 signatory, and then it doesn't depend on any particular employer, and that can give you more negotiating power with your co-founders or investors or any other people who are involved in what you're creating. So we have a whole class on this that I created. It's called Alcorn Academy Extraordinary Ability Prep. And Alex, if you could please share a link to that so that people can sign up if they would like. It's 15 online video modules all about how to qualify and become our ideal client for an O1, EB1A, or EB2 NIW. I think I recorded some of those when I had pink hair. So that was a moment in time. I met somebody from USCIS and I was at a coffee shop and I was like, hey, and they were like, hey. And then I'm like, I'm going to order something. And they're like, okay. And then like, they didn't come in. They didn't say hi. They were still waiting for the woman with pink hair to show up at the coffee shop. And they thought I was just some random person talking to them.
Oh.
Really funny.
That's
like,
funny.
okay. Yeah. So you only need 3 of 8. Happy to help you figure this out. If you think you're part of the way to doing this, we have a assessment option called Legal Launch, where we'll give you our checklists, you upload your documents, and we will do a detailed review of your existing qualifications to help you know if you're already qualified for O1, EB1A, or EB2 NIW, or specifically, if not, which criteria you should work on and what are some samples of things that you could do in your field or industry so that you have a very targeted, concrete to-do list and you're not like randomly spinning your wheels, which can make, especially like research engineers are fine with this, marketing people are fine with this. The people who have a problem with this is just like engineers of applications, like trying to do system architecture or actually like launch code or figure out the robot, because they need to get their brain into like flow states of engineering from first principles with very determinative outcomes. And what we do in lawyer land is very fuzzy, it's subjective, it's non-determinative, it's not going to make sense to you because we're like, oh yeah, write that article and that article, and you're like, but that doesn't make the bridge stand up. We're like, but it will help you get a green card. So we have those options to help you, and that's $2,500. And then if you do Legal Launch and if we can accept your case after that, we'll credit the money to your future case with us. So it's a really good assessment tool as a first step, especially if you're part of the way, but you don't know if you've done enough yet. Okay. I guess I said this. Many of the challenges we encounter can be met through patience and the passage of time. I would just say that beginning and establishing and attempting to practice and cultivate a meditation and mindfulness practice has been very helpful to me in this world of immigration because it's very intense. But by having mental clarity and focus and a positive outlook, there are many solutions that you can bring to yourself for your immigration journey. It is, at the end of the day, possible. That's being said, sometimes bad things happen in immigration, and one of the chapters of the book is about this. That was kind of hard for me to write because it's sad, but don't read this unless you need to refer to it. That's what I would say, because I don't want you to law of attraction brings some RFE into your life that didn't need to otherwise happen. But they're, obviously, like, it's a zero-sum game. You get approved or you don't, and there's some things along the way that can happen when stuff doesn't go according to plan. But that's why in the book there's a very lengthy section on how to handle RFEs, what to happen if you end up overstaying, what you should do if you find yourself out of status, what does it mean if your visa gets revoked. So most of our clients are the most law-abiding, paranoid, perfectionist, wonderful, good-hearted people we've ever met. So hopefully none of this will ever happen to you. But if you ever find yourself needing a resource or a first glance of oh my God, this thing happened, what does it mean? What do I do? That resource is there for you. There's also a lot of what ifs, right? It's challenging, and immigration is a real test of human character. And I think that's why so many, over 50 or 60% of the billion-dollar companies had at least one immigrant founder. And you read a lot about the grit and determination of immigrants. And I mean, really, you have to navigate this very complex strategic landscape for the long term. You have to be super committed and to getting through it. But we're here to help you. But it's founders and essential employees alike often wonder, what if I fail? What if I don't get funding? What if my company closes? And so those stresses can be heightened if you're at a startup and if you're dealing with immigration. But it's amazing how many people get through this process, right? And Corey and Linda, did you have those experiences where you're talking to I don't know, a Stanford or MIT PhD, and they're like, well, I only have 5 of the 8 criteria and I haven't met my life dream yet. We still have cancer. I don't think I'm qualified. And then you're like, well, you should see that one we just got approved for those startup founders last week, right?
Yeah,
a lot of different types of people can qualify, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and people can be very modest too. I find that, I take a look at their LinkedIn profile, their CV, I'm wowed. And, with how they present themselves in a call is so different than as I look through all their accomplishments and things that you might not think you could use, we can use. There's news clippings, you're on a product team, there's some citations, or you're like, well, I only have, a couple hundred. Well, that's a lot, we can work with that. So I think everyone compares themselves to their peers, not they don't look at it in terms of the immigration process. And so we look at it very differently.
Yeah, and I would just add, I agree with Linda. There are people who are very modest and, try to go into the consults, knowing that it's a safe space to just kind of speak your dreams and talk about yourself, and it's okay. And we're not judging you. You can boast. That's totally appropriate in that scenario. I think we all strive to create that environment so everyone feels comfortable just oversharing and giving us all the information that we need. Yeah, definitely happens.
Thank you. Yes. All right. Because, this was from my dad. He used to tell me about the difference between bravery and courage. So bravery is full of bravado. It is brash and fueled by adrenaline, but courage is doing the right thing even when you're scared. So courage comes from the old Latin French word cor, which means heart. And so courage is having heart and following your heart, even when the way seems unclear, even when you're not really sure what the next step is or if it will work. When you follow your heart and do the right thing, even when you're scared, that's courage. And that's what we encourage our clients to have in the immigration process. So we are here to help. We're going to turn to questions. We have a lot of questions. Appreciate your questions. We would love to support you with consultations. You have a QR code where you can put in your first name, your last name, and your email address, and we'll be sending you our questionnaire so that we can do an assessment for you of your immigration options. If you're from a company, we'll be scheduling a call with you to simply chat about your corporate immigration needs and what you need for your team. But that's the first step to getting help from us. And oopsies. Okay, we're going to do questions, and then I also have a QR code for the book at the end, but the links are all in the webinar chat, and you're all going to get a copy of this recording. So in the webinar chat, Alex graciously put a link to the book, a link to the upcoming H-1B webinar that you can register for, our online class, Alcorn Academy, and also Legal Launch, our assessment tool. So with that, let's do some rapid fire questions. Okay, starting from the top. Does getting incubation in any of the good incubators grant us the visa O? Not in and of itself, but if you're in Y Combinator, Techstars 500 startups, you're going to go through the program. You're going to be, they might invest in you. You might get PR on demo day. You might be able to raise additional funding. So if that is aligned with what your business needs and you can get in and the equity is worth it to you, then yeah, we can absolutely use that stuff for an O1. What if the waiting time in my country is too long for the O visa, e.g. 1.5 years? Do I have to go to my country to apply for the O visa, or can I apply by staying in the US at B2? Corey, you want to take that real quick?
Yeah, so waiting time, I think they're asking right about non-immigrant visa appointment times then for their country.
Yeah, third country national
Okay.
processing and change of status.
Yeah, so you can do a change of status from a B visa to an O visa, provided that you have authorized stay, that you have enough time that's going to allow for that. As far as like going to another country to process, you can, it's an option. There's just sometimes more scrutiny with your interview and your application because you're applying from a different country. So it's definitely an option, but there are considerations involved there.
Thank you. And then if you just started the company and you have a US co-founder, can your co-founder invite you to the US? If yes, on what visa and what are the prerequisites? Fill out our questionnaire, get in touch with us, schedule a consultation with you and your co-founder. We'll help you figure it out. But as I hope you've seen, there's a lot of options that we might be able to help you with. Okay. What? Looming layoffs? No. Okay. I don't know. I don't want to be in that reality anymore, but let's just take this question. Okay, Linda, if a person is on a green card with their pending I-485 and they're from India and they have an EAD, what are the options to co-found a startup?
Yeah, so if they have that I-140 approval and they have a pending 45, there is green card portability once the 45 has been pending for 180 days. So they can file the supplement J, the I-45, and they could actually work on that EAD card and work for their own startup. Or they could work in for a similar company. Essentially, everything that they're doing on that EAD card should align in some way with what the green card was petitioned for. So it should be in kind of the same lane field wise. So they could work for themselves or they could work for someone else.
Yeah, and two additional notes on that. One is if you can wrap up your immigration in this Biden presidential administration, great. Beyond that, we probably recommend preserving as much optionality as possible. So like maintain an H-1B in parallel with your I-485 and your EAD. That will give you more options in the future. And then the other really cool thing is we're navigating this for some initial clients right now, and we expect more formal announcements from USCIS in the next few weeks. But the whole thing about like, I want to transfer my H-1B to my startup. Do I need a 3-member board that can fire me? We're seeing some light at the end of the tunnel that you might not have to dilute your equity prematurely or bring in random people you hope you can trust to be on your board. It looks like it's becoming easier for founders who are CEOs and owners to get H-1B transfers approved. And we're happy to have that individual meeting with you at any time. Okay, a few more questions. I have not made the H-1B lottery for 2 years in a row, and next year my current status will be ending, which is very stressful. Are there ways I can improve my chances of getting accepted next year? You could get multiple offers from different companies, but be careful because the companies that colluded this year to do that for people got in major trouble. So really, you should probably get qualified for an O1 now and have that as a backup option. You have a year to rack up accomplishments as a thought leader in your field. You can definitely do it without working. And the other thing is, educate your employer that we have options to get concurrent cap exempt H-1Bs without the lottery. So you give back to American college students who are doing, first generation college students studying STEM who need project-based learning tutors. You can get an H-1B without the lottery, and then your company can piggyback on a second H-1B for you to work there, even if you don't go through the lottery. We'll try to do a few rapid fire. Can an H-1 just register a company name and no business activities means not working for my own company? You can own a company, but then I would say don't code for it and don't try to raise funding. So I don't know what the point of incorporating would be at that point, but yeah, you could be a passive business owner and not work there. But if you're doing those other activities, you have to be careful. Okay. Co-founder of a 15-year medium-sized company in renewable and aerospace sensors tech in India. Wow. US market expansion, ideal visa option and business structure. Set up a branch in the US, don't necessarily need a green card. You need to talk to Linda about getting an L1. And then you got to talk to your potential customers in the US and see if they require to do business with a US parent company or if a US subsidiary is sufficient. Either way, we can help you with your L visas. So thank you. Hello, is this content in the book? I'm a startup founder, but I'm processing for a green card by marriage and they requested an RFE while I go through a divorce. Eek. Okay. I don't think so, but if you need a referral to a good family immigration lawyer, you can email us and we'll tell you who's on our list. If the dates for filing employment-based visa applications become current and you've filed and received an EAD, can you then leave the company? You can always leave, but you might not be able to stay. It's sort of like the Hotel California song. Yeah,
future and L, be very cautious because you need parole.
You probably want to make sure your I-485 has been pending for 180 days before you leave. Okay, I'm going to be mindful of everybody's time. That's all the time we have for questions today. Please get the book. Here's the QR code for the book. Please get in touch if you need anything else. We're more than happy to follow up. Get in touch with us, complete our questionnaire. We have lots of options and we're here to help you. So thank you so much for listening, everybody. We'll be sending the recording and have a wonderful rest of your day.